right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the first session of our educational series. We're going to discuss a number of topics in the coming days and weeks. Hope you're also enjoying the live sessions, videos, and posts made twice a day around 3 a.m. Eastern and 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So we shall continue posting live sessions twice a day and at least one discussions or the educational sessions, which I normally like to call. Uh, and We start today, 27th of November 2017. This is your host Harsh. Again, a warm welcome to you all. So let's get started off. Uh, I will not be doing a presentation such style of session here. It will be a board style session that I normally like following. So I'll be taking some space. Here it is. Let's get started. It will Today's session would go on for at least 15 to 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes maximum. And what we would like to discuss today is the basic structure or the basic tenets, what they call, of the wave principle. All right, let's get started. It all uh, Before we begin this session, because it's basically because of the gentleman called Mr. R. N. Elliot, who brought forth this wonderful wave theory uh, around 1930, and it was published around 1938. His work got published around 1938. And I would also like to thank Mr. Plecter and Mr. Frost, whose book is almost a model which is being followed worldwide for the wave principle and its understanding. All right, so having thanked these wonderful personalities, let's get started off. What it says, the basic structure of the wave principle is very simple. First of all, there are two things that we need to understand, and it is difficult to form a belief or a conviction first time. So the first time, if you're watching this or if you're hearing about this for the first time, at least what you need to have in you is a bit of faith. All right, then that will be taken care automatically. They say that the markets are basically patterned. That's the first thing you need to have faith on. And they repeat in need to have faith on this. They are not random. That's what is the basic perception or normal perception. The markets are random in nature and they move with just about the fundamental news that are coming out. Yes, the fundamentals have their own effects, but it's not the only thing that you should know to predict markets. So they're really patterns scientifically, they move and they repeat itself. Now, how is the movement? That's what we want to understand in this session. And what are the basic elements uh, that you can divide the waves into? All right, and then from the next session onwards, we shall be touching base upon each element individually. All right, so let's get started off. You only need to know how to count five and then how to count three. I think that's pretty simple. So maybe when it comes on charts, it may not look like very simple, but it's not too difficult as well. Just need to spend some time on the charts, and you need to spend some individual time on charts. It says markets move in five waves towards a particular trend or major trend. Let's put it that way. In this figure, we assume that the major trend is up or rising. And then when it completes five waves, it moves three waves against or in the opposite side of the major trend. All right. Once again, markets tend to move five waves towards the major trend and then three waves towards the counter trend, let's say, against the major trend. So let's write it down. Five waves towards major trend. And on the other side, three waves towards or against the major trend. All right. When it's moving five waves towards the major trend, it is actually, if I tell you in a story form, when it moves in five waves towards direction, that means it has got a motive. It has got a motive to move the market up or higher in this case. All right. It has got a specific motive that if a high is being formed, it wants to form another high which is higher than the previous high. All right, that's the motive when it moves five waves. That's why the name motive phase. And even in life, it is not just a one-way deal, right? So why not in the markets? Understand, if you try and understand technical analysis or the wave principle or anything else, just like a story, that's what I think it's the easiest way to understand. And put it in a story format and you would start loving it, right? So once again, five towards a major trend, three against a major trend. the particular phase has got a motive. It wants to create, or it wants to print higher highs towards the direction of the trend. That's why the name motive. And the other guy needs to check that, all right? It needs to check. For instance, let's take a small crude example. Like if you're walking down, let's say markets are walking down the street as an individual. That individual is so particular that it wants to turn back. He wants to turn back a bit and go a few steps down the line, check whether I'm on the right path or not. And once it does that, it again resumes walking, or that particular individual resumes walking towards the previous path. So, uh, five waves towards the trend, and then the correction, the checking point, I would say, to check whether it's on the right path or not. And once it finishes that, it again starts off in the same direction that it had begun with. Is that okay? I'm just showing one wave. It's actually not one wave, but again it's five. Do you understand? Okay. Now, we are not going to appear for an exam, or this is not an examination, but the normal rule or the general rules to label your charts. I mean, you can form your own personal understanding as well if you want, because it's about making things simple, right? I will just let you know the guidelines here, and then you can follow your own. And the general guideline says when it's moving five waves, it is labeled as uh, numbers. Numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. When it completes 5, it forms the first wave of one higher degree. I repeat, it forms the first wave of one higher or larger degree. All right. Now, again, let's take an example. Let's understand it in a story form. Uh, if you're trying to build a wall, it is built up of bricks, and number of bricks put together will form one wall. Number of walls put together will give you number of floors, right? Build number of floors for us, and that put together raises the building. So just understand this analogy. Small waves, smaller waves like the ones I've noted here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Smaller waves are continuously working to form a part of the larger wave. The part here is wave 1. All right. Okay, let's move on to the other phase now. The other phase says they are labeled as letters A, B, and C. Corrective phase is normally three waves. I would say normally, because there are some exceptions to it, we'll find out later on. But normally corrective waves are three waves labeled as A, B, and C. Did you notice I've written wave 2 into brackets? Now this bracket is just to understand that we are working on one higher degree, nothing else. Okay, you can have your own understanding if you want, but this is a general understanding. So now you understand the smaller waves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 working to form a larger wave 1 towards the major trend, and then the smaller waves A, B, C working to form wave 2 as a counter trend. What follows, I think you can imagine now, it's again going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is going to be into brackets wave 3, and then wave 4, and then wave 5. All right. So this normally, putting in a very normal perspective, this is the basic wave structure, basic wave structure that we are going to study. All right. I'll be going slightly deeper into this now. Do you remember we just discussed smaller waves are working continuously to form a small part of the larger wave, right? So if we interpret it in a slightly different manner, just imagine that we are putting wave 1, which is this one, wave 1, under a microscope. So this wave 1 will come out with more detailed sub waves, right? Okay, before we discuss that, let's understand what the properties of each wave. It's a very general property of each wave. Wave 1, wave 3, and wave 5. Did you see that? Wave 1, 3, and 5, they are moving towards the major trend out of the 5 waves. In the motive phase, specifically, if you notice, waves 1, 3, and 5 are moving towards the major trend, right? So again, the same property applies. Something moving towards the major trend 1, 3, and 5, they would also typically subdivide into how many waves? And the answer is 5, right? So please remember waves 1, 3, and 5 within the 5 wave structure also tend to unfold into 5 waves. While if you notice waves 2 and 4, they move against the major direction within the motive phase as well. I repeat, waves 2 and waves 4, they are moving against the major trend in the motive phase as well. So they unfold into 3 waves. You understand? 3 means nothing. It's not moving. Prices are not moving, they are correcting. 5 means prices are moving towards a particular trend. Alright, so always please remember 5 is always followed by 3 normally, and then again 5, and then again 3, and then again 5. Now that 5 waves, you need to remember it's not the end. That is just a small part of the next larger wave or larger degree. Alright. Similarly, if you look at the corrective phase, there are three waves A, B, and C. And if you also notice, this is a corrective phase, but for the individual waves for the individual waves A and C, a trend is being formed at least for a small portion of time, which is down, right? So again, please remember waves A and waves C will have a different property in the way that they subdivide either 3 or 5. I'm using the word either 3 or 5, but to simplify, let's begin with 5. So A and C also will move into 5 or subdivide into 5 waves, while B is a counter trend within this bigger counter trend. Did you notice that? The major counter trend is down, or that's a corrective phase. Within that down corrective phase, wave B is moving opposite. So it's a counter trend within the counter trend. For for simplification, it is a corrective phase. Now you know that every corrective phase normally moves into 3 waves. All right. I think this is very clear now. 5 waves towards the major trend, and then 3 waves corrective opposite of that major trend. Right. 5 is motive, 3 is corrective. Okay. Just let me check the time. We are almost 20 minutes. I'll just take 5 more minutes uh, to make you understand the fractal nature of the market. What is the fractal nature of the market? And then I'll continue from there in the next session, right? So, just about 5 minutes back, we were discussing about putting wave one under a microscope. If you do that, you will see the sub waves of the first wave, right? Now you must be wondering what really happens when you know all these things and the waves and the sub waves and all this stuff. Have some more patience, brothers. We'll put it all together, and you'll be amazed to see. It's not the only way to analyze markets. The wave principle is not the only way, but it's a very effective way if you can understand the waves or the sub waves properly. It helps you a lot. And then you'll have to put some other tools together, which we will be discussing in the coming sessions. Don't worry. So a microscopic view of this wave would would look like, what should it look like? I mean, you already know the answer. Well, we already know the answer. It should look like 5 waves. And let's label this now. At least we know that this is 1, right? It's not into brackets 1. So what we can do is we can change the nomenclature. Since it is 5, it has to be, we have to use the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can use we are using Romans here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You understand that again the same theory applies. Small waves, Roman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they are working, or they worked to form wave 1, or the letter 1, or number 1 of 1 higher degree. Did you understand this, sir? I think you're getting it now. So one more thought. If what happens? What would you see if you put the Roman wave 1 under a microscope? You'll again see the same wave structure. All right. I will just extend this one step further. Oh, but there's no space here. There will be three waves for wave 2 as well. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. This is wave 2, and the labeling would be, let's say, small a, small b, and small c. So the fractal nature indicates that every wave, no matter what time frame or which degree you're wanting to monitor, they will have the same wave structure, that is 5 and 3, 5 and 3. Now, since we are talking about a rising market, it's 5 up and 3 down. If we are talking about a dropping market or a falling market, it would have been 5 down and 3 up. All right. So that was the first discussion on the basic patterns or basic structure. Sorry, not patterns, but basic structure of the wave principle. That's 5 and 3, and then we slowly touched upon the fractal nature, which is a wonderful representation of the same structure irrespective of what time frame you're watching. Just imagine if you can break it down to the smallest time frame, and if you sit and count, you'll be counting number of waves. We will continue from this portion in the next session. I think we will be, our schedule is like two daily live sessions. These sessions are broadcasted live on the YouTube channel. Okay. I can paste the channel for you. It's taking time. And then we'll do one educational session, at least one per week. It's normally done during the weekends, but I'm starting on a Monday. The next should be on a Saturday now. Then we have a trade channel on Telegram, where all the live trade setups are updated there. You can join, you can just search for Harsh Jappi in your telegrams, and you'll find the channel there. It's all free. If you're interested, please do join the YouTube for the live sessions, and uh, of course you're going to find all these sessions right at the Alps social media as well. And for any doubts or queries or comments, always welcome to write an email here at harshjabi@yahoo.com. I'm also coming up with my website, harshjabi.business.site. Starting off in a very humble manner. It's just a Google business page. Please check this out. and it's just about the passion that we are able to do what I'm able to do now, and with kind support of my past participants as well. All right, so with that note, let's bring this session to a pause now, and I'll be back with this session 2 very soon. We'll be continuing with the fractal nature of the markets slightly in detail, and then we will touch upon the motive phase in detail and the corrective phase in detail, and major five major patterns. If you can identify, it really helps a lot in the coming days and weeks. All right. So thank you for joining in, and I'll be back mostly on Saturdays from now on. Please watch out for the educational sessions being uploaded on Alps and YouTube both. And I expect to see you on YouTube as well as the Telegram trade channel wherever you're feeling comfortable. All right. So until the next time, please take care and God bless, brothers. Goodbye.